All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. It is April 27th at 6:03 p.m. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Strickman, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going. I have to drop me off down at my buddy's.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm
All right. Let's see, and I'll take roll call. Start with Council Member Ash McPherson. Is present.
Here.
Council Member Sue Steele.
Present.
Very good. Also present, I'm here, the Chair, Council Member Cummings. And then also present, we have Council Members Zalewski, McDermott, and Gully. So thank you all for being here. And I'm sure the Council President ex officio will be here momentarily. That being said, we've got a packed agenda today. I see public speakers are still logging in. I was asked to give a minute or a little while for Lindsay Zefting to present an unrelated topic about the Congress Street redevelopment, which will be welcome news to many. So we'll start with that presentation and then we'll move into public comment unless there's any objection.
Okay, and if I'll just do a quick introduction. Lindsay's with Alta Planning, and she'll be doing a presentation on the completed Congress Street Bridge study. So this is something that was funded by Department of State, and it came out of the comprehensive plan. We applied twice for funding for this and didn't get it, so we teamed up with Watervliet this year, and it was a good thing that we did. And we had a really well-attended session that Lindsay was able to pull off in about 3 months via YouTube. I think we had better participation because it was on YouTube. And part of the recommendation is loop around the Hudson River. Last week at the Finance, you approved a resolution accepting money from the Hudson River Valley Greenway to make some changes on the Green Island Bridge. That is something that's already a success of this plan. And I just want to thank Lindsay because Lindsay identified the funding opportunity and was able to get that for us. So that's why we have this $400,000 for the Green Island Bridge study. So we had great participation with Watervliet. I want to thank them for leading the effort. Really, I kind of handed it off to them and said, you guys run with this because you have to write the rest of the grant. I've already done it twice. And so anyways, so we've got so it's completed, and I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay now to do a presentation. It'll be probably about 10 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Lindsay. Are you sharing a screen or anything?
Yes, I was just going to ask if that was all right. I'll run through a quick presentation.
That'd be great.
Let me just get myself situated now that I've shared my screen. Okay, everyone can see that?
Yep.
All right, so I will, as quickly as I can, run through this and then answer any questions that you have. So I apologize if I'm brief, but I want to, you guys have a full agenda tonight. So the Congress Street Bridge study, we led that. We also had EDR, Floyd Albert, and Chazen on our team. As Steve said, jointly with the City of Watervliet and the City of Troy, funded by DOS. And there we go. I'm going to run through a quick introduction of the study area, the priority projects, the recommendations, and Q&A. I am Lindsay Zefting, licensed engineer with Alta Planning and Design, a principal at the firm. Our study area was determined. It was the first thing we did as part of this project, obviously focused around the Congress Street Bridge, but we also wanted to include the areas around the bridge, the waterfronts on both sides. So the image shown here is what we defined as our study area and what we were going to focus on for mobility and general improvements. We focused the project on priority projects, the study on priority project. What is going to be, have the biggest impact to both communities and really be a catalyst for everything else, as well as redevelopment and reinvigoration of this entire area. I'll go through the ones in Troy or collaborative in a little bit more detail, but there was the shared use path on the Congress Street Bridge, the Ferry Street, Congress Street improvements, the River Street connection, and the Front Street Trail conversion in Troy, in Watervliet, which I'll touch upon the 19th Street and 2nd Ave intersection improvements. But the other priority projects in Watervliet that I'm not going to highlight tonight was the southern connection to Hudson Shores Park, tunnel underneath 787, and also significant traffic coming to the section of 23rd Street around 787 and that gateway into Watervliet. So this is an image we put together for the entire project, just really to kind of show how all these priority projects come together to really invigorate the entire study area. So the first priority project and the highlight of this entire study is the implementation of a shared use path on the Congress Street Bridge. There's already sidewalks. There's a lot of people that walk over it, a lot of people that might want to bike over it, a few that dare do. But really the goal of this project was to provide a comfortable and inviting pedestrian and bicycle path, reduce vehicular speeds. You know, there should be a connection between the communities, not a highway, and creating a gateway that really linked the two communities and create a gateway feature for both. So the recommendation here is to reduce the travel lanes on the bridge. The amount of vehicles that are on the bridge that use the bridge daily currently can actually be accommodated with 2 vehicular lanes. So what we propose is shifting all of the traffic to the north side of the bridge. The Jersey barrier that's in the middle of the bridge right now would stay in place, making this much more cost effective. And the entire southern half of the bridge would be converted into a shared use path. One of the things is to make this more interesting, more inviting, really a gateway between the two communities, is do more than just have it open to bicycles and pedestrians. Define that shared use path, replace the bridge railing so it's more pedestrian friendly, get better views of the Hudson River, create overlooks at strategic points across the bridge, and also create some landscaping. We can actually bring some trees up onto this bridge to provide a little bit of shade, some interest. So this isn't just about getting across the river, it is an experience between the two communities. The next priority project and the next two I'll talk about relate directly to the conversion of the bridge, is to reconfigure the intersection on the Troy side of the bridge, removing the ramps and creating a true intersection. So this provides a direct connection to the bridge, pulling traffic off of Front Street, allowing more direct access between South Troy and downtown, enhancing bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, overall providing better circulation. So the proposal would remove the 2 slip ramps and create a signalized intersection. Anasha, did you have a question?
I did, sorry. Is phase 1 possible without phase, like, are they phased in time or just in sort of focus?
The 2 intersection projects need to happen to shift the traffic to the north side of the bridge.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, both intersections need to be modified. There are improvements that can happen to both intersections without doing the bridge project, or first before doing the bridge project. But really it is best to do this all together, but there can be some phasing involved. But yes, they're very much interconnected. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this includes the conversion of Ferry Street to 2-way vehicular traffic. You'd still have the 2-way vehicular traffic, or you would have 2-way vehicular traffic on River Street in this direct access. So it really, again, takes traffic off of Front Street. We kept the intersection tight and urban intersection, so it's safe for pedestrians and cyclists to cross. The shared use path would come off the bridge, and a shared use path would be continued along River Street. So you can exit the bridge essentially down to South Troy, down to downtown, various routes. So really just facilitating that whole connection. Incorporated in this would be a new CDTA Bus Plus stations, both in the east and westbound directions. And this is just a photo simulation of what this would look like looking from the intersection back onto the bridge. So you can see how you kind of incorporate the shared use path on one half, vehicular traffic on the other, and also the CDTA bus stops. The other intersection, so this is within Watervliet, but very much tied to this project on the bridge, is 19th and 2nd Ave. The issue here is really the scale. There's a lot of pedestrian activity happening at this intersection already. There will be more. So how do we bring this down to a pedestrian scale and make it inviting and safe for pedestrians? So what we've recommended here is what we call truck aprons at the corners. Because there's buses and a lot of truck traffic moving through these intersections, it requires a curb radius that is really big, which encourages passenger vehicles to take those turns at increasing speeds. So by putting in the truck aprons, it still allows the movement of the bigger vehicles, but slows passenger vehicles down so that they actually take the tighter turn. We are also able to incorporate pedestrian refuge islands with the shared use path coming in off the bridge. So that should bring this intersection down more to a pedestrian scale and be more of a gateway feature coming into Watervliet. The other recommendation, other priority project within the city of Troy is the Ferry Street and Congress Street improvements. So we looked at these two corridors holistically. How do we provide better connectivity, safer accommodations for cyclists and pedestrians, better access to the riverfront, and better circulation for vehicles as well as transit service. So the proposal here is to convert Ferry Street to two-way. So this becomes the primary east-west route, and Route 2 is on Ferry Street. Still provides on-street parking on the one side of the street like there is today. But that allows, by shifting that traffic off of Congress Street, that really allows Congress Street to become the bicycle pedestrian centric street, the slower street, not necessarily for mobility through the corridor, but well, for mobility for all users. So the recommendation there is to include a cycle track, but a raised cycle track that really blends into the environment and also calms the street at the same time. So that's a rendering what that would look like on Congress Street. These are two cross sections we put together. Again, the Ferry Street two-way vehicular traffic, still maintaining the existing on-street parking on one side, still maintaining on-street parking on one side on Congress Street, but incorporating that cycle track for a protected bicycle movement. The riverfront shared use path on Front Street was our next priority project for within the city of Troy. So better connectivity, continuing that riverfront trail. So what we proposed here, kind of taking what Taylor Apartments has been proposing as part of their master plan a step further and really thinking about it a little bit more holistically. What we recommended here was really a dual path, a riverfront trail for people to enjoy the river, meander, mingle, socialize, enjoy that view, fishing, whatever the activities might be, but a parallel bicycle path for people that are trying to move through the area. So you don't have that conflict of use. It would be converting Front Street to one way, closing all of Front Street between Congress and Division with this intersection in place. It's a lot more feasible. And then the other thing we recommended, there's the existing basketball courts that's there. It's a great community gathering area. Actually dropping that down so it's at the same level with the riverfront promenade and creating bench seating going up to the bridge. So that was another thing we incorporated in that. And this is a photo simulation of what that might look like. Looking at the new promenade and park space underneath the bridge and how those two spaces would come together right at the bridge itself. On top of our priority projects, again, those are the catalysts, what's going to spark really redevelopment in the area. We wanted to take another step further. What are the other recommendations, what we call general recommendations, that will really transform the entire area? So as Steve mentioned, the loop trail, and before I get into that, there's just a quick glimpse of what we recommended in Watervliet. I won't go into those in detail. But a lot of bike boulevard routes avoiding their main streets so that bicyclists and pedestrians have alternative routes to get to their destinations. The loop trail, the priority projects, bringing those all together, create the southern half of the loop between Watervliet, the city of Troy, and Green Islands. Together, it would be a little over 2 miles, just over 2 mile loop. The Connection of the riverfront promenade would be one more gap. A continuation, so bike lanes or some other path along Lower Hudson Avenue in Green Island would be another link. And yes, City of Troy has the funding to implement the connection across the Green Island Bridge already. So we're one step closer to having this loop trail implemented. The Troy general recommendations, again, I will go through really quickly. This is just a map and it's in the report of what those all are. Creating a north-south downtown bicycle route, we proposed two alternatives in the study, either protected lanes on 3rd and 4th, but because they're really busy and very transit-focused streets, the other alternative that may be better and more comfortable for cyclists is actually a shared street with counterflow bike lanes paired on 2nd Ave and 5th. So we proposed two options for those. Converting River Street to two-way traffic flow, again, with that intersection happening, it's worth considering. This does require further study and ongoing conversations with the residents in downtown business district. But this could be implemented with fairly minimal removal parking spaces or curb modifications. So it's one thing that we recommended to consider further. Franklin Alley has been really successful. So what we recommended is really continuing that, pairing Franklin Alley and Church Street as two alleys and having them cross between Congress Street and State Street. So you have these pair of alleys. So that was another recommendation we made. And then the Ferry Street pedestrian improvements. So there's already this pedestrian improvement connection through Sage College along Ferry Street as opposed to going through the tunnel, right? There's no bicycle and pedestrian access through the tunnel. You can go up and over, but it's uninviting the way that the walls are there. A lot of people don't realize that that is a route that you can continually take. So we made some recommendations for modifications to that wall and that continuous pedestrian network to really invite people to travel that route along Ferry Street through the Sage campus. So this is just a plan view rendering of what that would look like, that modification at 3rd and Ferry. Also through Sage College, as it crossed 2nd and 1st, implementing raised crosswalks, which the campus is very supportive of this recommendation. And then just general amenities. So while it's great to actually put in the infrastructure, bike lanes, shared use path, what's really going to make the experience for pedestrians and cyclists and getting people to enjoy these spaces in downtown Troy is to have the amenities, a place to park your bike, bike repair stations, benches to sit and relax, street trees. So we made some recommendations as far as strategic locations for these types of amenities to be implemented. And our next steps, study adoption and get funding for some of these projects. Hopefully I was quick enough. Apologize, I was a few minutes over. Any questions or comments?
And I'll just add in, this creates some changes to the tip that we already have for the Congress Ferry tip. So we will have to go back to CDTC to get probably a small amendment to that. We've already talked to CDTC because the current tip only goes from the Congress Street Bridge up Congress and Ferry, but doesn't include this intersection. And by making this change to the intersection, there's additional work that we would have to do, traffic light enhancements for two-way on Ferry, a travel of the lanes on Congress Street, two-way bike lanes. And I feel very confident with all the infrastructure money that's out there that we should be able to get the funding. I would hope to be able to do this project in the very near-term future. Keep your fingers crossed, but the redevelopment of Taylor Apartments really would benefit by this. So you have an affordable housing project, riverfront trail, connections, intermunicipal, an intermunicipal agreement, an intermunicipal cooperation on a project. I think we would rate very strongly on any infrastructure funding that's out there.
Here. Thanks for this good work getting us ready for those grants. I think it would be obviously very transformative. the one question that I always get whenever I start talking about this with people is, isn't that way too steep without the off ramps? What is the analysis on that in terms of, is River Street going to need to come up a bit to meet that intersection, or have we solved for that yet?
We did look at grades. We haven't fully graded out the intersection at this point, but we did consider grades as we laid out the intersection plan. So River Street will come up to meet the grade. The tunnel is fixed. The bridge is fixed. So we've got to meet in the middle for the intersection. However, those grades will work. It's not going to be the ideal, but we're not going to make the grades on the bridge any worse than they are today.
Okay. Yeah, this rendering here almost looks like, I think it's actually just that curve. It makes it look like a very steep grade, but I don't think that's what's going on there, right?
There are some points on the bridge today that are 8%. It's typically 6% or a little bit less. I mean, it varies across the entire bridge structure. But your steepest point is going to be 8%. I don't foresee this project making that any worse. But yeah, you are getting into some steeper grades, but it's shorter distances.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions for Lindsay? Okay, thank you, Lindsay. That's very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Let's see, and now on to the rest of the agenda. Let's see, we've been receiving a bunch of new information, etc. A new resolution yesterday. So we've been going back and forth as a council about what to do with all this new information. So I just wanted to check in with the sponsor, Councilman Gully. Did you want to withdraw it for now, or what's the plan here?
Yeah, Nash, at this time, I'm going to withdraw it back so we get a couple weeks to kind of look over the new information. Everybody can get their heads together, and we can progress with this in the near future.
Okay, I will commit to scheduling another meeting in a couple weeks. As we have a council meeting next week, but the week after that, we'll schedule another planning meeting to go over the details here. Given that we have everyone here, we'll try to have a little bit of discussion now, but we'll obviously, I'm still learning things. I'm still getting information. So we're not going to be ready to make a full decision at this point. So that's great. Thank you. And for folks listening in, because there's no legislation on the agenda, there won't be a traditional public forum on that legislation. So we're going to go into the rest of the meeting for now. I will make time at the end of the meeting for anyone who still wants to comment at this meeting. But otherwise, I'd encourage folks to sign in a couple weeks as we get a more detailed view of what's going on here. Is everyone all right with that as a path forward? Great. Then let's see. Let's start with other planning department updates. Is that all right, Steve, or is Andy Brick coming at some point?
No, Andy Brick is not coming.
Okay.
No, Rick Morris, he's representing the city on the proposal on 2nd Avenue.
Gotcha.
I'm here, Nasha.
Great. Thanks, Rick.
Yep. And so I'm sorry, you wanted other updates?
Yeah, let's start there. That was the second thing on the agenda.
Right. Okay. So actually, it's funny. I got a flat tire on the way home, so I'm scrambling here at the end. What's that? I made it. I got an Uber and I left my car. I'll go back and get it. Anyways, let's see. On the wayfinding, I know I emailed everybody. Everybody's waiting for our updated wayfinding. We do have the bid package just about ready to go out so that we can do implementation in the downtown area this year. Dylan has been out this week with a family medical emergency, and so we'll get that kicking back up again next week. Let's see, what other things did I want to talk to you about? Just on Monument Square, the city council or the local development corporation, if you saw the article, they hired a consultant to help with grant writing and financial modeling as well. So there's no update on that. I would just say that, construction prices have gone up, costs have gone up, grants were uncertain. That's why it was delayed for a year. And so we're trying to make sure we come back with a good a package here for the city council. So we'll be getting back to you shortly on that, but there's really no other update on that right now. Let's see, the industrial access road, we've filed our intent to, I'm not sure what the legal term is there. All the offers have been made for the properties for phase 2. They were rejected, so we're filing with the court to continue that process. I still anticipate having construction on some of that commence later in this year, if not definitely early in 2022. There's so many projects. I'm trying to think of what else
Chair.
Oh,
To be clear, when you say file with the court, you're talking about eminent domain process?
yes, because that's the process we went through, basically, right?
Okay.
Um,
Primarily the old Bruno building, or are there other sites involved with that?
There's the Bruno building. There is the Troy Slag properties, the salt pile to the north of that, and KC Refrigeration as well. And we were close on that one. They've got why am I repeating?
Oh, Kim, I'm going to mute you for a second, then I'll call on you.
So we were close to a deal on that, and they're selling that property. So they basically just were holding out for a little bit more money. So again, I think the process is fairly well laid out for that, and hopefully it's only another 30 or 60 days until we can have title to those properties.
Okay.
And record it. And then if there's additional negotiations that have to occur for pricing, that will continue after that.
Great. Ash McPherson had a question, I think.
Sorry. Steve, when you were going out, you froze on me a little bit, so I lost the first part of what you were saying on the industrial road. You said there's 3 properties that you're trying to, we're trying to take. Is that what you were saying?
Actually, there's 3 ownerships. So there's the Bruno manufacturing building.
Say that again.
Sorry, Kim, if you can mute when you're not talking, even when you're asking a question, you're causing an echo.
Okay, so there's the Bruno manufacturing building. There are the properties on the river from the salt pile north. There's 3 of them. They're all either owned by C.D. Perry or Troy Slag. And then there's the KC Refrigeration property to the east of the railroad track, just just south of Adams Street. So those are 3 owners.
Okay. So my next question is, so you got 3 owners on those properties, and you're in negotiations with them on buying the properties from them?
We've made the offers. So we made the offers. The offers weren't accepted. So now we go through the process of we basically, and I'm not a good expert on this, but we filed to take the properties, and the negotiations continue on during the process.
Okay, thank you. I missed a lot of that because my screen froze on it, so thank you.
Okay. And the other update, just I think I had mentioned to many of you, the Capital Resource Corporation supplied some funding to have Alta Planning look at implementing the riverfront trail with the water lobbies on First Avenue in Lansingburg between 111th Street and 123rd Street. And the mayor mentioned that in his State of the City address. And so they came up with some concepts of how to do that. Keep the traffic would continue to be used, have access, vehicle access and vehicle parking on the street, but it would make a connection. It would further the riverfront trail basically between 111th and 123rd Street. So I have a number of neighbors in Lansingburg that we're going to meet with now and walk the area and talk about this and get it to the next phase to decide what the ultimate design could be on that, and then look at costs for that and see. I mean, some of it can just be done with striping. Some of it might be able to come out of this year's paving budget that's already targeted for a part of First Avenue. And, but hopefully that's something we can do there and get some volunteer work to do the cleaning of some of those water lobbies again, so that you'll have it, you'll have a 12-block trail with a bunch of parks at the end of every street. So we'll be starting that. I'm going to have Councilman Gully will participate with that group. If anybody else wants to too, they're welcome to. Okay, got you, Kim. And so we have some other mostly other residents of Lansingburg. And again, this is something that was recognized in the Lansingburg Village Plan a number of years ago. And so it's nice to be able to take that action up there and support some of the, the St. Augustine redevelopment and basically, I think, enhance future development of the former Price Chopper lot as well. So that's underway. I believe that's all I have for updates. I know I have more, but that's all I have written down for today.
Anything on the rezoning process?
That's the big one, yes. So that's nearing completion. I'm going to do a presentation just to some staff tomorrow in-house, and hopefully we'll start being able to roll that out with the city council over the next few weeks, and then go back and then go out to the public. So that's nearing completion. It's been a long slog.
So should I be looking to call a meeting to look over that as well, or you're talking about sort of individually talking it through with us and then going to the public, or what's the?
I think the best way is probably to do some one-on-ones on it to bring you up to speed, and then have a public presentation, and then have public meetings. We'll discuss that. We'll be discussing that this week as well. How to roll this out.
Great, but it'll be in the coming month or two.
It'll be definitely in the coming month.
The public part of it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Anything we can update? Do we know any updates on the atrium project?
They presented to the Planning Commission, and they'll be back again next month with future enhancements. So it did not include expanding south into the public area, or excuse me, or doing anything with the atrium, or building out onto the sidewalk on the northeast. So it's all about the demolition in the northeast corner, and building on property owned by Mr. Bryce.
Okay, so no action on our part required at this point. Yes, Councilmember Basham-McPherson.
Steve, what section of the atrium is the city's property?
The center. Steve is frozen.
He's frozen. Anasha,
Well,
What?
Steve, it's back. It's the center portion where it's not an actual building. There's no offices. It's just the fountain and the stairs and the open area there. I believe
so it's
that
just like
part-
the middle of it going down. Okay, all right. I was just,
So we technically own that, although I think there's a management agreement with Bryce, so he cleans it and maintains it and everything else. And then the city also owns the extra wide promenade sidewalk to the south of the atrium. So those, I think, were the sections that had been discussed previously. But
okay, thank you.
Steve is still frozen. Let's see. Anyone have any other questions or topics they want to talk about before we allow folks who have hung in here a chance to say something? Okay. Then just for the public's knowledge, as previously mentioned, the legislation has been withdrawn and isn't being considered tonight. It will be considered in detail over the next few weeks and rediscussed at another planning committee meeting in 2 weeks. Notice for that will go out shortly. That being said, you've made the effort to come out, and I want to give you an opportunity to say something. If you do have something new to add to the discussion, you're welcome to do that. So the folks who, I believe, first person to sign up here is Shell Miller. So I'm gonna allow Shell to speak if she wants to, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, my name is Chell Miller. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So I live in downtown Troy, which is on occupied and unceded Mohican land. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Alta Planning too for sharing your proposal. I am here to ask our city council members to vote no on resolution 29 when it is brought back to the council. Resolution 29 would move forward the rezoning process for the proposed development of 1011 Second Ave, currently pursued by Kevin Vandenberg. This land is the last untouched waterfront forest in the city of Troy, a site of particular historical and cultural significance to its original custodians, the Schaghticoke First Nations, as well as the Munsee and Lenape Nations. This land is also the site of an indigenous settlement and Arrowhead mine. Developing this land would destroy the last riverfront forest in Troy, New York, destroy land of cultural and historical significance for indigenous peoples of this area, literally paving over their history and culture. It would destroy important waterfront and fishing access for the local community. It would destroy an important natural refuge and biological niche. It would disrupt the character of the Lansingburg neighborhood by increasing traffic, leading to a parking shortage, raising costs for residents, and significantly increasing noise levels. And finally, it would divert resources from the development of other long vacant properties and plots in the Lansingburg neighborhood that need much more urgent development and reinvestment. I'm also here to ask that City Council members vote no on the proposal that is currently under consideration to hire more cops under the veil of community policing. I know what you're thinking. How is this relevant to the Planning Committee? Bear with me. As you'll recall, community members have shared at February's listening sessions and subsequent council meetings that we want the city to fund social services like youth programs, healthcare, housing, food support, education, harm reduction, and non-carceral responses to mental health crises and interpersonal conflicts, which are all proven to promote community safety and well-being and prevent violence. These funds could also be used to repair existing infrastructure or build infrastructure that benefits the people who live in Troy. For example, community members have repeatedly called for safer places for children and youth to play, like swing sets. Where are the pools? We've also repeatedly called for streetlights and roads to be repaired. I live on Fifth Avenue and reported a pothole that's been growing where I park my car months ago, and I haven't seen anybody come to look at it. The city was scheduled to do the spring street cleaning 2 weeks ago. That didn't happen on Fifth Avenue in downtown Troy. So I ask you to vote no on that proposal when it comes up as well, because those funds need to be used to benefit the people who live in Troy. No one at February's listening sessions asked for more cops in our neighborhoods. What we did ask for was for you to invest in infrastructure and social services that benefit the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, our next commenter is Jennifer Schulander. Sorry, Jennifer. I'm allowing you now.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jennifer Schulander. I live in the Beeman Park neighborhood at 2161 12th Street. I don't have to say a lot. I really don't want the zoning to be changed. I know that this is deferred today, so I won't take up anybody's time. I'll just stay tuned and stay aware and keep learning. But my last thing I'll just say is, just with everything going on with COVID and with just people's thirst for nature, I just feel like this is such an opportunity to really create something special. I'll add this. I went on a great tour in Lansingburg this Saturday through the Lansingburg Historical Society. It's hugely popular. They're going to reschedule more. I haven't been out so much because of COVID. I was just astonished at the amount of building going on when I drove out there. Unbelievable. All of these developments that are cropped up. And so even more, the idea of building on that land, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I just feel like it's such a treasure, and that we should do everything we can to use it as a sacred space, an educational space, a space to, enjoy nature. So that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Our next speaker is Keith Hirawaka.
Chair,
Yes, Councilman Billy.
could I just make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely. 1 minute, Keith.
Just a simple comment. I understand, and I hear all the callers asking the city to protect the property, or the city to not build on the property. I just want to give some clarity to all the speakers tonight that piece of property is owned privately. The city does not own it. It is owned privately. It is a buildable piece of land, and the developer is going to build something on that property. Now, whether it is one rendition or another, they have that legal right to do that. So I just wanted to be clear that I know you want to emphasize that the city should try to protect that land, but this is a private piece of property owned by a corporation, and that they have a right to sell, and people have a right to develop on. And I know there's issues there with some of the land, and that has been pointed out by the developer, and certainly they're looking into that. It's not as though they're just going to go in there with a bulldozer and bulldoze it all into the river. So it's a long piece and a long journey, but I just want to help everybody to understand that I understand their emotions in this, but you have to realize that what's really going to happen is probably going to happen one way or another. And I don't want anybody to be disappointed that the city didn't do it or the council didn't do it. This is a private sale to a developer who can develop a project there. What that project will be is where we have the option to say, will this be good for the city of Troy? Will it help the city of Troy going forward in the future? And I don't mean just in the first year or two. I'm talking 10, 15 years down the road. But I just wanted to put that in there because I know everybody's talking about the city saving it, and I didn't want them to be disappointed or put this on somebody who really has no control over that piece. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. We just got a couple more commenters here, and then so yeah, I think next is Keith. Did you still want to make a public comment, Keith?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and of course I appreciate Mr. Gooley's comment, which sounds about right to me. My name is Keith Hirakawa. I'm a professor of law. My focus and specialty is local government, land use, zoning, and environmental law. So this is pretty much what I do for a living. I don't usually participate in these hearings. I show up to participate and comment where it looks like the process isn't working. And so that's why I'm here tonight. And I just had a few comments, and I realized because the resolution's been withdrawn, that may look like some of this is a little moot for now, but I'm not sure it is. So I just wanted to just throw a couple comments on the table just to offer my thoughts on this. The first one is that this seems to be an awfully confusing process that's going on right now. I took a look at what was going on in the materials and what you were going to vote on tonight, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was. I know that there's a petition, could be for rezone to a PD. There could be a development project. I've seen some pictures, very little analysis, and it got me a little worried. That we weren't sure as the public what we were participating on, and I wasn't entirely clear that you would know what you were voting on. And this is a fixable problem, but it's the wrong process, right? And so I think that it is important as you go forward to make sure that the applications are fully in, so that you know what you're voting on, that you know what you're taking lead agency status of, and that we do as well as the public. One of the dilemmas here is whether this is a rezone and a project or just a rezone. And I would encourage you to recognize that if it's just a rezone, then this is going to have what I interpret as legal problems of segmentation, because we are, apparently people know that there's a development project that's being proposed, and the court's been pretty clear they should be considered together. But if that's the case, you might consider whether the Planning Commission is a pretty appropriate lead agency for this, since what they do is project review. And so that's one thing we're thinking about, is that the process can be a little more effective. But the other thing that I want to point out is I did read Commissioner Strickland's memo attached to the resolution, and it did get me a little worried as well, because there were some things that seemed to me maybe a little bit advocacy and very misleading. And so just making sure that I said my piece on this seemed like a good idea. The commissioner's letter makes a point, first of all, referencing Andy Brick's letter, good letter about defining spot zone. And by the time the commissioner's memo gets to the definition, it doesn't look the same. And I think it's really important to recognize this, because as far as spot zoning goes, this is a real danger in this application. Spot zoning has traditionally been defined as singling properties, few properties, or one property out to give benefits to the owner at the expense of the public, right? That's really what spot zoning, where the analysis starts. Mr. Brick's letter lays out all of the relevant considerations. And the reason I point this out is when I read Mr. Strickland's memo, it seemed to me that the comprehensive plan part of this, consistency with the comprehensive plan, was sort of an afterthought. What the court has pretty clearly called ad hocery, not something to engage in because you just sort of do what you want when you want. But the comprehensive plan, and in particular, Troy's comprehensive plan, is an important document. What the court has said in the past is the comprehensive plan is the essence of zoning. Without it, there can be no rational allocation of land. It's the insurance that the public welfare is being served. I do think it's important to recognize the comprehensive plan's importance to this process. I'm not sure it has been, because I took a look at this rezone proposal and I compared it to the comprehensive plan, and it pretty clearly to me looked like there was no compatibility to be had. The current low-rise development designation on the comprehensive plan is the opposite of what this development proposal is for. Too high, too many kinds of uses that otherwise are prohibited. It seems to me that if you want to go forward with this process, you should strongly consider going through a comprehensive plan revision before you consider this rezone. Because there's not a way, at least the development that I heard about, there's not going to be a way for this to be considered consistent with that comprehensive plan. And so it's just going to be a long, drawn out process, I imagine. So that's one of the things to think about, is how important the comprehensive plan is, and that if rezone is what you want to do, that it is important that what you find is this rezone proposal advances the comprehensive plan, right? Not just that you can find something in the comprehensive plan, like access to a river that might be really nice, but that the rezone itself, right, that a planned development district would actually advance the goals of the plan. And it doesn't look to me like that's what's going on here. Those are just some things that I wanted to point out. Comprehensive plan consistency is going to be the key. I do hope you consider what the application is going to be when you go through this process, and whether the Planning Commission might be appropriate just because of their experience in going through project review. I appreciate your time. Please feel free to ask me any questions, or if not, thank you again.
Thanks for joining us, Keith. That's very helpful. And hopefully will be helpful to the commissioner as we continue to move forward. Let's see. Our next speaker is Leo Mateo Bahinger. You've got 5 minutes.
Hello. Now it works. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. So first of all, I wanted to really thank the committee here for sticking around and doing the effort for listening to the public, listening to everybody who stuck around and taking the time. I think everybody really appreciates that. I think this is very important, and I really applaud you for doing that. That's really great. And I'm also appreciating that the city council and its members and the planning committee really wants to make sure that it does the right thing and is taking a hard look at all the information that was presented to them. So thank you for that as well. And I agree with what Jim Gully just said, that this will be a long journey ahead of us. I think we all are aware of that. I think we're all here to do this journey together, and are looking forward to doing that. And I just wanted to point out that this parcel it's true, it's private property. I think the EAF that is attached to the resolution indicates that as well, and that it is zoned to allow for R1 single family housing. I think though that we have to be clear that the single family housing will have to go through the same process as this development as well. It will also need permits. It will also need to go through seeker. It will also need a full EAF. It will not be able to just tear down the entire forest and pave it over, as it was indicated in a previous meeting, just because of the presence of the state rare species that have been documented, because of the location of archaeosensitive sites and the impacts that have to be mitigated on those, as well as that it's along a national register sites with the old canal, the old bargeway, and itself is national register eligible. It's along an inland waterway. So all of this means that a single family housing project comes with a lot of hurdles and a lot of study and a lot of expensive and long and drawn out process as well. And then I'm not sure, and I didn't find yet an economist or developer, and I spoke with a lot over the last year that we've been in this process, that this makes economically sense and would revitalize itself by building single family housing and putting them out for up on the market for renting, which was indicated before, especially, but also not for sale. And so I think if the city council and whoever will be the lead agency eventually is reviewing this process and taking into consideration the in-right uses, that it should also take a really hard look at the economic feasibility of single family houses, including the process costs, including site preparation costs, because otherwise it really doesn't make sense to think of it at all, because you don't have information to really significant and meaningfully compare it and make a judgment whether this development makes sense to develop an R1. And it should also be pointed out that while the developer has an option to purchase this land from the current owner, and he has an absolute right to exercise this option, that there's also always a chance that the owner sees the significance of this land, and should the option expire, to decide to bring it into an easement, or that the developer sees the significance of the land and how much it means to the community, and find a way to work, for example, with a land trust to bring this land in preservation. Some land trusts purchase lands, so that might be an option for the developer and applicant to consider. The developer could be really a hero here, and there are many, many sites that are more qualified for this kind of development in the surrounding area that would really deserve to be revitalized with this vision of the developer. And I think the city council should consider creating this kind of win-win solution with the developer and seeing if his vision can't be brought to a better appropriate site, like the price chopper, the vacant price chopper that's, I believe, owned by the same owner. And I'm sure that the community groups would support that and applaud the developer and really see that here everybody can be a hero. So that's what I wanted to say. And again, I really appreciate everybody for listening so carefully and working with the community, listening to community organizations. I've been working, I've been helping with the Friends of the Mexicantuk. We've spoken, I'm part of the group, we've spoken with many of you, and we really appreciate that you make an effort to listen to the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Sarah Pesdek. We do have two other people that are signed on, but I don't believe they're signed up to speak, Daniel Morsi and Shri Kamer. If either of you do want to speak, raise your hand in the Zoom feature, but in the meantime, we'll just finish off with Sarah.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Pesdek. I was born and lived in Troy during my childhood. I've been working with the Friends of the Mexicantuk and their efforts to save 1011 2nd Avenue from destruction. I'm a local artist and currently working on an exhibition that's centered around the Hudson River and its natural and human history. For this, I've been doing deep historical research in addition to traveling up and down the length of the 315 miles that the Hudson traverses. I've learned much about the geological, ecological, colonial, and industrial history along the water and its surrounding villages and cities. Through all this preparation, I've encountered two things that are relevant to the land at 1011 2nd Ave and the threat it currently faces from developer Kevin Vandenberg. First, many of the places I visited along the Hudson, especially south of the Capital District and with high population densities, respect the green spaces that they have along the waterfront. Scenic Hudson in particular has done a spectacular job acting as stewards towards land similar to that of 1011 2nd Ave, taking care of these spaces, creating public access trails to their park and to the water, maintaining receptacles for waste, and providing educational and stewardship opportunities. Additionally, they create statewide campaigns for the land under their care that highlight these spaces as tourist destinations and ecological and economical assets for the municipalities that they're situated in. While there are residential developments along the river, there is also deep respect for the nature and what it provides to the community. There is a stark difference in Troy. The majority of its waterfront access is either brownfields or already cleared open spaces within the downtown area with access to the waterfront. Troy has no tree-covered waterfront park, which has been left in its natural state. Though 1011 is currently privately owned, the city is responsible for maintaining appropriate zoning for the area, and proceeding forward with the intent to rezone closes the door to all realistic possibilities towards preserving this land and turning it into a space that the community needs and wants to enjoy as it is. It's uninviting to have to walk through a residential development to get to so-called waterfront amenities, reading short paragraphs on a kiosk about history, or walking concrete sidewalk paths winding through poorly landscaped apartment communities. 1011 2nd Ave is Troy's last chance to embrace the possibility of its last natural community asset along the Hudson. Second, the colonial and industrial history along the Hudson is deeply celebrated. Cultural and historic landmarks abound and utilized for tourist destinations and educational opportunities. Municipalities take pride in their historic preservation efforts and maintaining the character of their historic communities. However, present-day recognition of pre-colonial history and the inhabitants of the indigenous peoples along the Hudson is scarce. And while most of the original inhabitants have been driven out of the region through colonial genocide, ignored treaties, and forced assimilation, the indigenous people that lived in this region and in Troy are still very alive and present today. Bands such as the Stockbridge Munsee are more often returning to their homelands to reconnect with the land that they have been forced off of. The Schaghticoke Nation, for which the town of Schaghticoke was named after, and which part of 1011 is situated in, is still present, active, and resides close to the region. These indigenous nations have also participated within the community education initiatives and local preservation of other sites in Troy and the capital region, further solidifying their presence, interest, and investment in your community. To allow the continuation of colonial practices, of denying their presence and importance, and to further erase what little history they have left in this region is disgraceful. As our country moves closer to reckoning with its past and trying to right its wrongs, it's particularly bad form to push forward with development on land in your city that is an uncontested National Register eligible area of cultural significance. You have a unique opportunity to save, preserve, celebrate, and expand the history of your city, recognize the significance of its original stewards, and highlight their impact on shaping this region and beyond. Yet by moving forward with the developer's proposal, you're continuing to erase their history and identity. With the exception of the decision of the Planning Commission and vocal opposition from City Council members Anasha Cummings and Ken Zalwinski, every decision that has been made, either by the Troy City Council or statements and motions made by Steve Strickman, Troy Planning Commissioner, has been in favor of the developer and only the developer. Overwhelming public and expert statements have been made in opposition to this project, yet they have fallen on the deaf ears of those who've been elected to serve their constituents and their well-being as a community. I recently have been considered purchasing a building in Troy from the foreclosure list with the intent on creating a community art center and gallery. After my involvement in these meetings and recognizing that the City Council does not have the best interest of their community in mind, but rather favors proposals by developers with deep pockets, whose cookie cutter apartment complexes now overshadow the historical charm, character, and culture of the city, I feel like my efforts would better be taken elsewhere, where the voices of the community, both present and those that have been forcibly removed, are more highly regarded and respected. In conclusion, I do not support Resolution 29 when it comes back up, or any efforts of Mr. Vandenberg's proposals moving forward. Though it may look shiny in the short term, it will become a stain on the city of Troy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that is the last of our speakers. If anyone else would like to speak, you can raise your hand. Commissioner Streichman is back. If anyone has any process questions for him as we move forward, or for Corporate Counsel Morrissey. All right, we will continue these discussions in a couple weeks. I did want to explicitly invite, I know developer Kevin Vandenberg and Adam Schultz have both stayed on with us throughout this. So if either of you are interested in speaking, feel free to unmute yourself and do so, but otherwise we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cummings and members. Thank you for the opportunity. Just very briefly, and we recognize and appreciate that the motion's been tabled. We'll deal with that in a couple of weeks at the appropriate time. I have listened to all the comments that were made this evening and appreciate everybody's comments and thoughts. The only thing that I would, Professor Hirakawa was talking about maybe the Planning Commission being considered for lead agency when we get around to that part of the process. But because this is a rezoning request, the Planning Commission is unable to serve in that role because they don't have any approval authority over rezoning. That's the only thing that I wanted to point out to the board this evening. And other than that, we will be ready to participate at the next meeting and have a fuller discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anasha, may I speak?
Yes, please.
Good evening, it's Kevin Vandenberg. I live at 430 9th Avenue in North Troy, which I would consider not the deep pockets part of the Troy, as I've been called tonight as having deep pockets. I like that one. Listen, the property, we're in the process of closing on the property. The property will be ours, but long before this process is over, it will be in my possession. At the end of the day, really, what we're looking for is a conversation with the city council in reference to this property of what's better. What's better for the city? Building the apartments or building single family houses? One or the other I'm going to move forward with. With the apartments, there's a lot of amenities offered to the city and accessibility to the land. We've taken the footprint down as much as we can to try to keep a lot of the natural growth that's on the property and all that, to try to appease some of the people that think that this is something that it isn't. You know, this is a private piece of property, and we're going to be doing something with it. All right. I'm a numbers person, and we have to look at the numbers of this site. And the numbers really in the end are either single families or the apartments. The apartments will bring about a $250,000 to $275,000 building permit only. It'll be in excess of $450,000 in property taxes in perpetuity every year. We've not asked for anything on that, and those are numbers, those two numbers I want everybody to know. I spoke with Dave Sheeran, the head of the building department, about the building permit fee. And I spoke with Sharon Martin about the taxes. And what we did was we took the project on Oakwood Avenue, it was mine, where it was 48 units, and this project is 5 times as large as that. And multiplying the numbers that we're paying up there, which was a $48,000 building permit and $90,000 a year in taxes that we're paying now. All right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of other things that go into this that we'll find out going forward. But at the end of the day, I'm going to move forward with one of the 2 projects. And I think it's important that people know that. I'm committed to this property. It's a beautiful piece of property. And one way or the other, we're going forward with a project. And it is private land. And in all honesty, I could pull a permit tomorrow and clear cut the thing if I wanted to. I have no desire to at all, because I think that a little give and take is what we need here. But there's nobody else giving. You know, the state puts into place a process for dealing with Indian artifacts. The state, the exit for the airport, the new exit 3, ran into the same scenario. The federal government looked at this property and ran a water line from this property over to Waterford. They looked at it, they generated the initial study that showed Indian artifacts, and they still went through because there was a process to deal with it. I think the tree thing, we got to stop getting hung up into the trees thing. If they want to save trees, the apartments is more better for the trees. All right. But I just want everybody to know that I'm committed to this property. We're going to buy this property. I'm not a deep pocket developer by any stretch of the imagination. All right. I lived in North Troy all my life. I built a lot of houses in the city of Troy and stuff like that. So I appreciate your time. I'm sorry for the confusion tonight with the mix up with the information. And I certainly think that everybody should take 2 more weeks to look at everything so that everybody has everything under their nose and everybody sees everything. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's see. I know one of the core questions a lot of folks had was what's involved with being the lead agency. If either Rick Morrissey or Steve Strickland could speak to what the council will be expected to do as we move forward, and then we'll move on for now.
So I can take that unless you want to, Rick?
Go ahead, Steve. I'll add to if you leave something out.
Okay. So as was pointed out, the city council has to be the lead agency on the rezone, and you can't break out the rezone in the plan development. You can't segment the project. So basically what you do is you're looking at the active rezoning, and you're doing the long environmental, you're reviewing a long environmental assessment form, and you are analyzing the project for the maximum build that can be built there, because the developer doesn't have concrete plans yet. You know, it doesn't have all the things you would normally look at if this went to planning commission, the drainage, the grading, a lot of those issues, but he has basically submitted an application that is the maximum build of what you can put on that property. So you would be analyzing that for 240 units, and actually it's a little bit less than 240 units. There's a little analysis we still have to do on that piece. But if it's 9 acres at 21.5 acres a unit, or 10, if it's 10 acres, that's 210 units. So the city council will basically, you know, be reviewing that, and they'll also be looking at, as was mentioned about the comprehensive plan. So I've gone through and done a quick analysis of the comprehensive plan, and there's not just one thing. There's not just a map that says low-rise residential, which, by the way, is 40 feet high. There are a number of other things in there about density, grow the economy, encourage a diverse housing stock. I mean, so I've gone through and looked, and I come up with 21 ways, and again, there's other ways people could make arguments, and I tried to be as unbiased, and I'll share this with the city council, but I come up with 21 ways that I believe this does support the comprehensive plan, and probably about 10 ways that it does not. So it's a balancing act that you have to look at. And again, I figured we would discuss that at a future meeting. Right now, it was more the discussion of the lead agency.
Okay. So process-wise, we'll discuss declaring lead agency in a couple weeks, and then
it
basically your office, in partnership with the developer, does the full form, and then we review it, or?
So they've submitted the long form, and actually in review, I found a number of things on the long form that needed correcting.
Yep.
So we'll resubmit that to the city council. And when I looked, so your analysis is the long form with, I believe it's 21, there's 18 different things that you look at. And most of them are things that aren't impacted, but there are a number of things, archaeological, you know, impact on the character of the neighborhood, not to say them all, but there's a number of things that you look at and you weigh. So I think it wouldn't hurt the city council independently to look at the long environmental assessment form, part 1 that will be revised and updated to you, as well as looking at the part 2. So the part 2 is where you analyze, are these big impacts? Are there no impacts? And if there are impacts, are they big? Or no, basically you get to say there's no impact or small impact, or there is a moderate to large impact. And the moderate to large impact is when you
So that's a decision we'll be making as a council, not a decision that's made in the planning department?
I'll certainly give you guidance on it, and no, but the final decision is up to you. So.
Great.
Right.
Do you have anything to add, Rick?
I do. A couple of things. One is to consider where we are in the process. Well, the committee is considering whether to refer the resolution to the full council. And at that point, it will be up to the full council to declare whether or not it is the lead agency, right? And obviously, it goes to you first for referral, but it is a preliminary step, is what I want to make clear. Secondly, what the council will be doing if it declares itself to be the lead agency is doing what SEQR requires, which is performing an environmental quality review of the project. At that point, I think it would be incumbent on the council members, in conjunction with planning, obviously. I mean, I also noticed a few mistakes in the long form, to become probably intimately familiar with the long form itself, but also with that really long project narrative that has been submitted in support of the project, because you can't, what you're ultimately going to be asked to do is first to find out, to declare what, perform the environmental quality review in connection with, this project and the rezoning that it requires. So you have to look at it. We're going from a forest to some kind of planned development, and all that entails. It's a pretty big responsibility, Anasha, as far as I can see.
Thank you. I guess we're we'll discuss that at the next meeting.
And one more thing, Anasha, I mean, you will have interaction with the developer in this process. And you certainly should formulate your questions as to, the archaeological sites everyone is concerned about, what types of remediation will be planned, or how we're going to go about deciding that and things like that.
Okay. That's great. In terms of next steps before the meeting in 2 weeks, are we going to get an updated long form with those errors corrected before then? Or has that already
Yes.
been done?
It's been discussed, that we discussed it. So you'll get that, and we'll have the actual project narrative. I'll see if we can get that on the website. I think Mara already got it on the website somewhere, so that you can review it there. It's kind of hard to email to everybody.
I know there were some concerns from SHPO about identifying precisely where archaeologically significant sites are. So I don't know whether or not there's any ability to, or
Anasha, Councilman Cummings.
No, go ahead.
The project narrative has the archaeological report attached to it, and it does identify where the sites are at that location.
Okay.
And then,
it has a map
Public
and
information, or is there a way to, or is it already public information, or is there a degree to which we should try to?
no, it's public information.
public.
And again, so anywhere that there's going to be excavation or impact on the soil, they're going to have to most likely do some type of an archaeological further dig or review or of those areas.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And that'll be controlled by SHPO.
Okay. So you'll get us the rest of those documents. Are you confident that that will be able to be done in the next week, so that we can have the meeting a week after that and have plenty of time to review, or should I wait to get it and then schedule?
Yes, Councilman, I think they should be, I probably can get them tomorrow, if not the day after.
Great.
One of them's complete, the narrative's complete, and it's just a couple boxes that need to change on the long form.
Okay. Great. Any further questions? I will take a motion.
So move.
All right. Second.
Second.
Great. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Thank you again.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.